This has to be one of the most consistent shows on television. I don't think it's this incredible, ambitious piece of revolutionary writing or TV making, but I do enjoy it. This show knows its audience and it knows how to deliver its product. Like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you're new, check out the rest of the channel and let me know what you think. Let's dive into Reacher Season 3. Reacher is back, and he is as violent and as goofy as ever. Look, I love this show. It's just purely unforgiving in its nature. In Season 3, Reacher is back working undercover with DEA agent Susan Duffy and her colleagues. Together they have to infiltrate a local gun-running organization to rescue Duffy's mole and bring Reacher face to face with an enemy from his past that he thought was long dead, named Xavier Quinn. Like every other season, Reacher is action-packed. It is the most prominent and enjoyable feature of this series. Every episode boasts at least one great action set piece. I never get tired of seeing Alan Ritchson just barrel through and bruise his way through a room full of guys. And then in the finale, we finally get to see him go toe-to-toe with Paulie, an absolute behemoth of a man. The fight lasts nearly the entire episode, and yet it never gets exhausting. It was really fun getting to see Reacher finally get to go up against someone who's bigger than he is, which is hard to believe because Alan Ritchson is just massive. Even Neely gets a wild shootout ambush sequence inside of her office, which is exciting, and the action this season is on par with the first two that came before it. I really like the direction of the narrative that they took this time. With Season 1 and 2, it was all about dismantling corruption behind police and security organizations that are in bed with these crooked politicians. But in Season 3, Reacher infiltrates and investigates a criminal empire headed up by a father who is just in over his head. Anthony Michael Hall plays Zachary Beck, a wealthy businessman who runs a rug company. Reacher's former adversary, Quinn, strong-armed Beck into heading up a front for his illegal gun-running operations. Beck only wants to provide for and protect his son Richard. Reacher uses Richard as his way into Beck's circle of trust, but he also grows to care for Beck and Richard both, and does his best to try and protect both of them. It's a compelling change of pace. While there is obviously a figurehead running the show behind the scenes, the majority of the focus this season is on Beck and his small group of henchmen. I really like that the villain this season is Quinn. I appreciated him having a connection to Reacher's past, and what a brutal connection it was. Quinn and his dealings were previously investigated by Reacher and his first partner, Dominique Cole. Once Quinn caught on, he abducted Cole, strung her up, and tortured and murdered her. Reacher found him and got his revenge, or so he thought. Quinn is a despicable human being. He does whatever he has to get what he wants, even cutting off Richard and Beck's ears as fear tactics. He attempts to sell Duffy's mole as a sex slave to some Russian gangsters. He is a real piece of shit. It's so satisfying when we finally get to see Reacher just blow his head off at the end of the season finale with a shotgun. It's great. The rest of the cast introduced this season are fine. I do enjoy the Beck and Richard aspect of the narrative, like I said. The performances from both actors are just not great. In fact, I would say of the 3 seasons, this one has the weakest acting across the board. The performances range anywhere from downright bad to just hilariously over the top. I mentioned Anthony Michael Hall, who plays Beck, and there's a reason his career peaked in The Breakfast Club like 45 years ago. Brian T., who portrays Quinn, is actually a bright spot in the acting department, but then you have Sonia Cassidy as Agent Duffy, and while her chemistry with Ritchson is there, her performance is just insanely melodramatic. And I appreciate her going for this classic Boston accent, but my god, it is not good. This is a recurring problem with this series that I hope gets fixed. Its performances outside of Richin are always lacking. My biggest issue with Reacher as a whole is that it never feels like it gets the funding that it deserves. And what I mean by that is that while the brutality of this show is evident, and while Richard's performance continues to be incredible and he continues to be dedicated to this role, it oftentimes feels way too much like a USA Network original from the mid-2000s. The producers of this show need to focus more of the budget towards securing more high-profile talent, as well as better filming locations. Or just better set design, honestly. In my opinion, the on-camera talent has never quite matched up to Richton's on-screen presence. I thought maybe they were kind of moving in a better direction in that regard after hiring Robert Patrick as the villain in the previous season, but they just kind of settled right back where they were. The second piece was especially evident in Season 1. The entire town in Season 1 felt so fake, partially because it was. I mean, they built that town for the show specifically. I was happy to see in Season 3 that, at least for the locations they shot when it's inside of this local town and just downtown area, they did film on location in Canada for those pieces. But I don't know what it is. There's something about Beck's compound in his mansion. The whole thing feels so cheap and just unbelievable. And that's something they need to correct. Like, this show should look better than it does. Despite the criticisms I have, I do really enjoy Reacher. It's a simple show that you don't have to fully invest your time into. Most, if not everything, is pretty surface level, and so it's accessible to really anyone, except for kids, obviously. It's way too violent for kids. Richton is perfect in this role. He continues to be. The action continues to be unrelenting and it's expertly executed. This show knows what it is. It knows who its audience is, and it doesn't disappoint in that respect. I just wish Amazon would move some funds away from the Rings of Power and dish a little more out to Reacher and some of its other shows. That way they can hire some big names, they can film at some really interesting and eye-popping places, and I'm just wondering, with all the money that Amazon brings in, if that's really too much to ask.